All right, I think we're live in all the places. Hey everybody, happy Thursday. We are live again. I am Carol Williams with Williams Immigration. I am the managing attorney of a boutique immigration law firm. We are headquartered here in sunny South Florida, but we work with clients all over, and we work with businesses and families, helping folks navigate our U.S. immigration system. And we are live on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok. So I wanted to come on again. We had a great conversation last night. So I wanted to come on again, talk about a few things, and then see if y'all had any questions that you wanted answered about general immigration cases or general immigration issues. And the couple things I wanted to say. When you are applying for a visa and you're overseas, whether it's a non-immigrant visa, a work visa, or a green card, you will make your life a whole lot easier if you don't change the way that you are living and you don't make any rash moves until that green card or that visa is approved, right? Certainly, I would like to think that all of my cases are going to get approved and all of my colleagues' cases are going to get approved. But that's just not the case. Right? I'm going to be honest, that's not the case. So you want to make sure that you are waiting until you get the visa in your passport if you are overseas before you start selling homes, selling cars, taking kids out of school, selling furniture, all the things, right? Buying plane tickets, renting apartments in the States, buying property in the States. You want to make sure that that visa is approved. The only way to know for sure that that visa is approved is that it is in your passport. Because it just becomes very, very stressful if you get a request for additional evidence or the consulate has another question for you and you are getting anxious because you have sold everything, told your job that you are leaving, or you've already, quit your job. So you really just want to make sure that you have the visa in your passport before you start making any massive changes. I always tell my clients when they ask, don't sell anything, don't move, don't quit your job, just business as usual, life as usual, until that visa is in your passport, whether it's a non-immigrant visa or an immigrant visa. And then once the visa is in your passport, then off to the races, make all the changes you want, sell the car, yank the kids out of school, find a new school in the States, buy a home in the States, do all the things, but do all the things after the visa is approved and in your passport. That makes your life a whole lot easier. The other thing that I wanted to talk about that I think y'all really need to know about is citizenship applications. Citizenship applications are taking a little bit of a turn in that now USCIS has said that they can come into your neighborhood and start knocking on doors, talk to your neighbors, see what your neighbors have to say about you, all because of extreme or heightened vetting. And the government wants to make sure that they know who they are giving a benefit to. And in their minds, U.S. citizenship is the highest benefit that the Immigration Service provides. That means you're here forever, right? And so they are saying that they should be able, and they are going to go into your neighborhoods, knock on your doors, potentially talk to your neighbors, maybe even talk to employers. So just keep that in mind. The other thing that you should keep in mind is also what's on your social media. Listen, I'm on social media right now, so I'm clearly all for social media, right? You do you in social media. But just remember that as you are doing you on social media, the government is also looking at your social media. On the visa application forms, there is a spot for them where they have specifically asked you for your social media handles, and they expect your your privacy settings to be set to open so that everyone can look at them, meaning that when the officer is looking at your visa application, they have access to your social media and they can scan your social media. So your social media is not, if you are applying for a visa, if you're applying for US citizenship, if you're applying for a green card, your social media is not merely just for you and your friends. The federal government will be looking at your social media. And when I say federal government, I mean the immigration officers. They will be looking at your social media. So keep that in mind as we are all living our best lives on social media. And I am happy to answer some questions. I see there are some coming in. But before I answer the questions, I did want to say something. I had a conversation recently with somebody who was looking for help with their green card application. Their spouse was looking to get withdraw their green card application, and the marriage isn't working. And should this person stay in the marriage just so they can get a green card? So live your life. I always tell people, live your life. If you work with my firm, my job is to explain how you're living your life, and how you're living your life means that we can get you an approval, right? Like how we explain via documents that your life and how you're living it meets the requirements. The Immigration Service doesn't expect you to stay in a bad marriage, right? There are provisions where, and it's frankly right on the form, right? Especially if we're removing the conditions to a 2-year green card, trying to get a 10-year green card. You don't have to stay in a bad marriage. You can live your life. We can, you're going to pull documents. We should be able to show that when you got married, your intent was to stay married and that it was a real marriage, that it was not a sham marriage, that it was not, hey, let's get married and you pay me and then I get my green card. If your marriage was not that, and frankly, it shouldn't be that in order to get a green card, if it was a real marriage and you intended to be there and it was not, a sham marriage, then we should be able to show that through documents. And so you shouldn't be thinking that you have to stay in a bad marriage. So think about yourself first, think about your children, if there are children in this relationship, think about your safety, but you shouldn't have to stay in a bad marriage. That is not a requirement. So I wanted to say that, because I've had that conversation very, very recently with someone. What should I expect in an A-file FOIA for USCIS? Looks like they only got a little bit of the info. So here's what you can expect when you request your A-file. One, you can expect that you're probably not going to get everything in the file, right? If it is a marriage-based case or there is a petitioner involved, there is a spouse involved, if there are children involved, if there's a company involved, you're only going to get information that pertains to you, the person making the request. So you're not going to get information on your spouse, you're not going to get information on the children, because that is personally identifiable information, and immigration doesn't want to give out someone else's private information. So it's probably not going to have their name. It's probably not going to have their social security number. If the petitioning person has an A number, it's not going to have that. So it's really only going to have information about you. So I always tell people, you're not going to get like they're not just going to go to a copier or print out like their entire file and just hand it over. Like they're not going to do that. Things that you will generally see in FOIA, I've seen I-94 cards. I've seen, I've seen the applications that have been filed. I've seen notes that have been written on the application that have been filed, decisions that have been made on applications, things like that will be in your A file. But it's not going to be is definitely not going to be like a complete exactly what the government has. So just keep that in mind. What else? And y'all are welcome to share this live with your friends who you think may be interested in asking some questions or getting some info. What else do we have here by way of questions? Thanks for all the hearts, guys. I appreciate that. Again. Once you do an interview, is it okay to submit evidence even if not asked while waiting for a decision? Really depends on what evidence you're trying to submit. My rule of thumb is if the government hasn't asked for it, I don't send in things. Some people, full disclosure, completely disagree with me on that. I don't know. I would have to kind of know why you want to submit information after the interview. It is a tough waiting time after the interview, and I think people just kind of get itchy and they want to do something. I don't really know that you have to do anything after the interview. If the officer wants more information or they think they need more information after the interview, they will issue a request for further evidence. They will absolutely ask for that information. So I think it really depends on why you're thinking you want to submit more information and what you want to submit. But it is something I would think very carefully about. I was on CHVN program and I'm back in my home country in 6 months' time. In 6 months' time, or can I apply for a work visa? Ow, sorry. My leg itches. I don't know sort of the ins and outs completely of the CHVN program because it was canceled. So I don't know if there was a provision that said that you had to wait a certain amount of time before you apply for a work visa. So that I don't know. I would ask someone that works with CHVN like all day, every day, and has probably some better information in terms of what you all can do now that you have been on the program, left the program, or left the U.S. and now want to come back. Let's see here. Let me see here. Someone is saying they have a friend that had a recent encounter with law enforcement. He was accused of theft. Case was dismissed. There was no conviction. Can he file for U.S. citizenship in 2027? I don't know. I would need to see the criminal document, the criminal charging documents. I'd need to see charging all the way to final disposition. I'd need to see their full criminal history. So that is your friend probably needs to have a consult answer. And they can do that by clicking the link in my bio. But I have no idea. I have no idea what, no idea where it took place, whether it was federal crime, state crime, all sorts of questions I have on that. But I think your friend, if they have I think if anybody has had interaction with law enforcement at any time in any country, they should have a conversation with a lawyer before they file anything, whether it's citizenship, work authorization, travel permission, absolutely anything. Having a criminal background it can be tricky because sometimes the judge will tell you, all right, this case is dismissed or it's expunged or it's nolo pros or whatever it is, and you never have to talk about this again, and it should not impact you. That is not true when it comes to immigration impacts. So if you have a criminal history for anything in any country, you want to make sure that you are consulting a lawyer who can walk you through what impact that may have on the type of case that you're filing. Illusion Gifts and Ideas is asking, should I submit foreign bank statements to prove the beneficiary is capable of taking care of stepchildren? If you think the foreign bank statements, if you think the foreign bank statements, or if you're using funds from the foreign bank statement sorry, my water bottle is squeaky, to help take care of children, then I don't see why that's a bad thing, frankly. I think the officers want to see that children are being financially taken care of. So if the way that you do that is by submitting foreign bank statements, the officer will certainly tell you if they think those are helpful or not. What's the next step after an interview for a green card was unscheduled and has not been rescheduled? You wait. That's sort of your next step. I don't know why they canceled it. I don't know why they haven't rescheduled it. I don't know the timing in between those two things. A lot of times it has zero to do with the individual and doesn't necessarily throw up red flags. Is it frustrating? Yes, but it doesn't mean for me that it's necessarily a red flag. So I would wait for a little bit. If you're antsy, which I think most people are, you can certainly reach out to immigration and say, hey, my interview was canceled. It hasn't been rescheduled. When can I expect it to be rescheduled? But chances are they will automatically reschedule it. But I mean, they know that they canceled it, and they know why they canceled it. They're not necessarily going to tell you, but they know why they canceled it. So you're probably on a list to be rescheduled. My attorney applied for a mandamus. They want an extra 60 days for an answer. Is this normal? It could be, but I would have that conversation with your current attorney, who probably has dealt with the government attorney on the other side. Why is USCIS canceling asylum and referring individuals to ICE ERO for credible fear interviews? My office doesn't handle asylum cases, so I am not at all equipped to answer that question for you. My office doesn't really interact with ICE ERO, so I can't really tell you. And that's another thing, y'all. Immigration is a pretty big field. It's a pretty big area of the law, and there are different components to it. There are attorneys that do mostly deportation. There are attorneys that do mostly asylum. There are attorneys that do mostly family. There are attorneys that do mostly business, and that's all immigration, right? But like my office handles employment-based cases. So I work with a lot of employers and startup founders and business owners and HR managers, global mobility folks, making sure that everyone in their organization has the right work authorization, and that any spouses and children that are coming with the employee also have the right authorization. And then I also work with families, right? So I'm usually helping a U.S. citizen get a green card for a spouse, a fiance, dependent children, or family, right? So it is really important to believe someone when they tell you that it's not their area, right? I've had people that really wanted to work with me, really liked me, but when I told them, I was like, I just don't handle your type of immigration case. Believe us when we say that to you, right? Like, that person is being honest with you, they're being upfront with you. Like, it's It's not really my wheelhouse. So sometimes that's sort of a hard thing for folks to understand, that one, immigration is so big, that people really niche down. Some of my colleagues do most of their work with international athletes, which is great, right? Some of my colleagues do work with mostly like really small startups, also great. So you just got to kind of really believe us, but find the attorney that does the work that you need done. So that is a plug for believing us when we tell you that it's not our area. And then there's a whole other separate area while I'm on this. There's a whole separate other area really where criminal law intersects with immigration law. There's another piece of the puzzle where family law, divorces, child support, alimony, all that direct, impacts and, overlaps with immigration. So, find attorneys that understand and or work with other attorneys. Like I work closely with some criminal lawyers that I know, and also some family law attorneys that I know when their cases have an immigration overlap, or vice versa. If one of my cases has a criminal overlap, or a divorce issue that pops up, areas that I don't practice at all, but we get other folks involved. I work with corporate lawyers a lot for my business clients. So a lot of what we do is very collaborative. Sometimes we have to collaborate with other immigration attorneys or other attorneys that are outside of immigration. So don't get freaked out if you need, if your lawyer tells you that they need to bring in like another lawyer, somebody else to help get you to your end goal. My husband and I have our interview on 9/4. He has a pending criminal charge. What will likely happen? I have no idea. I don't know. I'm going to assume that your husband is the one who is the immigrant here, and that it is a marriage-based case. Those are big assumptions I'm making. But if he has a pending criminal charge, depending on what that charge is, the immigration officer is, one, going to want to know about it, and two, probably will be put in a position, depending on what the charge is, that they can't approve the case until the criminal charge is completely resolved. So I would not be surprised, this is a family-based case, if you guys walked out of that interview without a resolution. And depending on what the criminal charge is, depending on if the information was disclosed in the application, I don't know, right? I don't know if potentially ICE might already be there. I don't know this person's status right now. So that is really a question where I would, if you are working with an attorney, I would have that conversation with your attorney. And if you're not working with an attorney, I would absolutely get an attorney on board. I always recommend there be an attorney on your file working with you, guiding you, helping you through the process if there is a criminal history in the case. Please explain the latest on CSPA. CSPA is Child Status Protection Act. So CSPA, now it is a way for people to freeze the age of minor children so that they do not, what we call, age out or turn 21 before their green cards are approved. That's sort of the big CSPA, kind of boil it down really, really easily. CSPA is recently changed. Everybody has a spot in line when it comes to their green card. And depending on your spot in line, depends on how long it takes your application to get approved. And if you are a child and you are a dependent of your parents, if you're under 21 and unmarried, you can be a dependent on your parents' application, and then your parents, when their application is approved, your application's approved, and you get your green card as well. If you turn 21 prior to the application being approved, then you are no longer eligible under your parents' application, and then you have to get your own. You've got to figure out your own immigration status outside of your parents. So there was a recent change in how USCIS was looking at these children, or really there was a change in the calculation. So I don't even know how long ago now they've done this, but the visa bulletin has two charts for family, two charts for employment. The super sort of simple answer to your question, Joanna Collins from St. Kitts, is the Immigration Service is now using the chart that makes it easier for children to turn 21 before the parent's application is approved. I mean, that is like without going into all of the technical things. But they're essentially now using the chart from the visa bulletin that makes it easier for children to not have their ages frozen as long. And so if you have a child that is getting close to the age of 21 and you want to get a green card, you should file sooner rather than later. I mean, frankly, in most cases, you're going to want to file sooner rather than later, right? If you're waiting to file because you think immigration is going to get easier, or you think that the processing times are going to go down significantly and it'll be quicker if you wait, no. Processing times go up in general. Sometimes we see them come down a little bit, but in general, the processing times go up. So Joanna Collins from St. Kitts, I hope that was helpful. Mahad over on YouTube says hello. So hello, I appreciate you watching. What other questions do we have? And y'all, last night I was on for like an hour. I can't stay on that long this evening. I gotta prepare for an early morning something. Let's see here. Someone's asking if your age is still frozen for VAWA. My office doesn't handle VAWA cases. And so VAWA has what I consider, my friends that do VAWA do not consider these rules tricky. What rules that I consider a little tricky. So I generally don't ever really talk about VAWA. So I don't know the answer to your question if the Child Status Protection Act still applies. If you're filing a VAWA application, I don't know. This is a good question, which I like to answer. I like to get this information out there for y'all. And the question is this: I'm waiting on my green card approval after sending in an RFE 20 days ago. How long will the wait be? So the short answer is I don't know. The slightly longer answer is the wait is going to be as long as the wait's going to be, which nobody ever wants to hear me say, right? But immigration is a lot of hurry up and wait. So there is no specific time frame by which the Immigration Service has to finish adjudicating your green card case. So understanding that 20 days to you and to me may seem like a long time. In the immigration world, 20 days is like 2 seconds. The immigration officer has other files on their desk. So when they got to your file, they started to process your file, issued your RFE, so they stopped processing your file. So your file still stayed on their desk. But in the time that it took you to return, gather the evidence, send it back into USCIS, they were processing other applications along the way. And so some of those got approved, some of those got denied, some of those had RFEs as well. So you're now, you're not going back to the end of the line, but you are going into sort of the ecosystem of the officer's desk. And so that may take another 20 days. It may take another 40 days, right? Again, something that nobody ever wants to hear me say, but I say it all the time. So part of it is just waiting, like 20 days. If I'm waiting for CIS to give me a decision after 20 days, like I'm not freaked out by that. I'm not freaked out by that at all. That's a couple of weeks. Like I'm just not freaked out by that. Now, if you were telling me we're like 2 years after you submitted an RFE, oh, yeah, I'm concerned about that. 2 years. I'm not concerned about 20 days. There is no specific time frame by which the Immigration Service has to get back to you after you submit an RFE. So I know that you're waiting for your approval, and I know that you want it, but you gotta wait. You gotta sort of deal with the ecosystem that is the officer's desk, and just take solace in the fact that you're not all the way at the back of the original line anymore. That someone's talking to you from immigration, someone's actively working on your file. So I love when I get that question, because it it really, I think, helps everybody to hear that answer. Let me see here. Hi, someone who just filed for citizenship, however, has a reckless driving adjudication withheld. Would that be an issue now or not? It happened 9 years ago. It could absolutely be an issue. That is something I would have a conversation with a lawyer about, because the new policies regarding citizenship applications and good moral character are looking at everything in your history. They're looking at everything in the past applications that you've had, past crimes. They're absolutely looking at everything. So yes, I would absolutely have a conversation with a lawyer, because it could be an issue. I don't know, I don't know what state it happened in. I don't know, state, federal, I don't know. Like all that comes into play. Absolutely all that comes into play. So I would have that person have a conversation with a lawyer. I'm looking for an attorney. I have a master hearing on September. On September. I don't have a lawyer. I'm located in Washington, D.C. There are some great lawyers in Washington, D.C. who handle deportation cases. You might want to Google. You may want to ask some friends if they know anyone. But there are some really great lawyers who are in DC. Perhaps I'm biased. I used to live in the DC area, and there are some great lawyers up there. Now, the fact that it's in September may be an issue, right? Because September is next week. September's right around the corner. And so I don't know if they'll be able to, take on your case on such a late date, but there are for sure immigration lawyers who can help you on the ground in DC. Someone's asking a question. Does a T visa applicant need to be present in the U.S. for the visa to be approved? I had to leave the country, and my attorney thinks the T visa can be successful. If you have an attorney, that is a question that I would recommend that you ask your attorney, since they know everything about your case. I would have the conversation with your current attorney. Let's see here. I have a friend who remarried 3 months after he divorced his former wife. The marriage is bona fide. How would USCIS view the 3-month gap between the two marriages? They're gonna look at it. They're gonna look at that like they look at everything else in the application. So I would tell your friend to be honest, and I would probably tell your friend to get a lawyer, so that lawyer can walk through all of the evidence that they have and do an analysis for them on how their entire case looks, and not just that one piece. Not just that one piece of their case. Mayana, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. You are most welcome. My pleasure. Is there anything we can do to help get my husband here to the U.S. sooner? To be honest, I don't know. I would have to have a conversation with you during a consultation, figure out, and find out what's happening in your husband's case. Yeah, I have no idea, right? That's like an incredibly broad question. Good question, but just an incredibly broad one. So oftentimes I get questions from people when we're having a consultation that are just that broad. How do I get my green card? How do I get U.S. citizenship? Can we do anything to get my spouse to the U.S. sooner? And then during the consultation, I whittle those, like I take that big question and then I start asking questions so that I understand what your specific situation is, and then think about it legally. How do we strategize to get you where you want to be? But for purposes of for purposes of kind of giving you guys some information, I have no idea how to get your husband here sooner. I would have to do a consultation so I could figure out what your situation is. Let's see here. I have a temporary 551 pen. I have a temporary 551 pending I-7 751. Can I travel? So oftentimes I say the question is, it's a twofer, right? It is, can I travel? It's, can I do something versus should I do something? Can you travel? Probably yes. Can you get on a plane, leave? Yeah. Assuming your 751 was filed on time, you have, evidence, you have a you have a 551 stamp on your passport, and a 551 stamp says that you are a green card holder. Yes, you should be able to travel. The question is, or you can travel, right? The question is, should you travel? And that is a more important question usually, which I do not know the answer to because I do not know your background. I am telling my clients, if there is a criminal charge anywhere in your history, especially one that was obtained after the issuance of the green card, whether it be a conditional green card or a 10-year green card, I'm telling my clients not to travel. Because on the way back in, when Customs and Border Protection, those are the folks that you see at the border, those are the folks that you talk to who run your passport, if they see that there is a criminal charge, they can pull you into secondary, and it's a whole world that you just don't want to know about at that point, right? So can you travel? Probably yes. Should you travel? Not sure at all. Travel right now is a very, very case-by-case situation. So my clients know to call me before they want to travel, whether it's for a business trip, whether it's for a vacation, whether whether I'm working with a company and they have maybe a business trip and they need like maybe they've got like a team of 4 people that are going. One person on that team is a foreign national who is being sponsored with a visa. They give me a call so that we walk through the current law as of that day, the current policy situations as of that day, and should they then travel. So yeah, it's kind of a big old, it depends. But it depends. Let me see here. Someone's asking about consultations. If you click the link in the bio, it will give you the link tree. The first tab is all about the consults, and you can schedule there. Another question. There was a interview over 120 days ago. What can I do to speed up the process? First, you should check online. Check the USCIS website and see if your case is outside of current processing times. If it is, then I would reach out to USCIS and say, hello, my case is outside of current processing times. What's happening? That is where I would start. Anytime someone asks me that, that's usually my answer. Let's see here. How long is the approval process from USCIS to the embassy? I have no idea what kind of case you're talking about. My office works with employment-based and family-based cases, so typically my employment-based cases are much quicker when it comes to getting an approval from CIS and getting notification to the embassy, because they don't have to go through NVC, which is like, NVC has a lot of cases. For family-based cases, cases go through NVC, and NVC has a process, y'all. Like, you are not going around the NVC process. So, all of the, hey, what's happening here, what's going on, all that has to go through NVC. Once NVC gets a case, we really don't work with USCIS anymore. We work then with NVC to get NVC the next set of documents, and then NVC gets us scheduled for an interview. There are some consulates that do their own scheduling, where I've gotten a notification directly from the consulate, but 9 times out of 10 that all of that communication goes directly through NVC. And so when you are asking for an expedite, or you are asking to speed up your case, understand that you are asking to be put in front of thousands of other applications that may be in front of yours. So there has to be a very good reason, from CIS perspective, from NVC perspective, from Department of State perspective. And so that is not to say that they do not approve expedites, but they take an expedite very, very seriously, because the agencies work on a first in, first out basis. So just remember, when you're asking for an expedite, you're asking to be placed in front of thousands of other people. And if we all did that, nothing would ever get done. The agency would shut down. So keep that in mind when we're thinking about how can we speed up our case. Because again, I'm not the most patient person, frankly. But yeah, there is a lot of, kind of file, hurry up and wait. So there is that. How often do they approve an I-601 after an approved I-130? I have no idea. My office doesn't really do a ton of I-601s, and typically we have. So for my office, an I-601 is something that we would work collaboratively with another attorney on, like another office on, usually. So I'm probably not the best person to talk to about 601s. We do like a very, very narrow part of the 601s. So y'all, we have been on for, I don't know, almost 45 minutes. So there's some stuff I need to do to get ready for tomorrow. So I will be back. I may go live sometime Saturday or Sunday. I haven't quite decided yet. But if you want to know if I'm going live, you can just shoot me a DM. I'm happy to let you know when my next live will be. I might go live on Monday, although it's a holiday. I haven't quite decided that yet, but I will definitely be back on Tuesday. I will definitely be back Tuesday. Maybe Saturday or Sunday. Maybe Monday, not quite sure yet. But if you are looking to work with me and my team, and you like a teeny bit of humor, a lot of sarcasm sort of injected into your legal process. I work with businesses, I work with families, we do citizenship applications. Feel free to schedule your consult. You can click the link in the link tree. It's the first tab, and then you and I will have a conversation and figure out a strategy to move you forward. So again, I'm Carol Williams, Williams Immigration. I can't give you legal advice until you actually become one of my clients. And to do that everybody starts with a consult, so we can have a good conversation, figure out what your goals are and how we can help you get there. So I will chat with you all. Definitely not tomorrow because it's Friday, but maybe Saturday or Sunday, maybe Monday because it's a holiday, but definitely on back again on Tuesday. So I will see you all again. This has been fun. And you can also DM me if you want to be added to my newsletter. That's got some good nuggets in it, and I send that out monthly. So I will chat with y'all later. I'm going to go finish up some work, have some dinner, and we will chat soon. Bye, everybody.